Welcome to Harmonious Workplaces, a podcast about corporate culture, organizational change management, and workplace behavior. Harmonious Workplaces was started by two independent consultants, Cruz and Ben Kleinman, to explore, challenge, and build on various organizational culture and change management concepts. It's a blend of theory and practice based on their personal and professional experiences working with companies of all sizes across various industries.
If you own a business, lead a team, want new ideas about the corporate environment, or just want to sit back and listen to two guys talking about how to make work more enjoyable, we invite you to relax and dive in with us to Harmonious Workplaces.
All right, let's do it. Episode 2 of the Harmonious Workplaces Podcast.
Welcome back.
Yeah. So we're going to be discussing why is change hard. And, so the first, our first podcast, and if you're tuning in for our second one, thanks for sticking with us. We appreciate it. But, we just kind of talked about, why, what is change and why is there this need for change, right? But here we're really getting into, why we know we need to change. Why is it so hard? Right.
And it sure can feel like it's hard, like you're pulling teeth every step of the way. And kind of just to set things up and maybe a spoiler alert for what we're going to get into, you have a nice framework that will help us architect this conversation. But it seems like where I like to try to get to is this idea that it can be hard, but doesn't have to be hard. And we're wired for safety, but we're also wired to be adaptable as people, as humans. We have been changing for millennia. And so it's a question of how do we kind of get the stars to align, if you will, on that, getting me to change and recognizing that I need to change and that change is good so that it is as smooth as possible. So,
boy, that's beautiful.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. Coming at it from almost paleontology
there you go
perspective, right?
The Fred Flintstone of change management.
Yeah, boy, if they had a change manager on it, on that mining site. I wonder if they had that. But Fred probably need to go through some.
The foreman probably wouldn't have shelled out for a change management consultant.
Shelled out. They use shells as money there.
Oh
no!
We've already started on the bad puns,
yeah.
Bad dad jokes. Awesome! It's that kind of podcast, isn't it?
It might be. It might end up going that way.
All right.
So yeah. Well,
Rich, let's dive in. Let's if you can, and you feel like you're ready for it. Let's share that framework, model, structure.
Yep. Hold on one second. I'm going to tee this up here.
And I think as you're pulling that up, that's going to help everyone kind of orient themselves. And we'll describe it for people who are not on the YouTube or the visual, but looking at it. We can describe it for folks who are on the podcast or just listening in. Rich, before you describe what we're looking at, or as you describe what we're looking at, maybe also help us and help me, because I have no idea who Bridges is. Help educate me on Bridges and the 3 stages of transitions.
Yep. So let me put this in the context where this came from. So I recently went through a certification at the Drucker School of Management in organizational development and change leadership. And part of this was looking at this model, which has stuck with me. Like I literally have woken up at night seeing this model because it just speaks volumes about how the change process works, right? And so it's Bridges. He in 2017, I think that's where this came from, managing transitions and making the most of change. He developed this model, which described the 3 changes or stages of transition, right? So one of the problems that we have with people not wanting to change, so resistance to change, right, comes at this ending stage, right? I mean, this is so ending meaning it's the beginning of the change process, but it's the ending of the status quo. It's the ending of what's going on right now. And people don't want to let this thing go. They just don't, especially if it's a good situation, but even if it's a bad situation, sometimes we just we've become,
and that can be super paradoxical, but it's holds, and it can be as challenging, even if it's not a great situation. People still are oftentimes reluctant to let it go.
Absolutely.
Or they find it hard to let it go. Like, I will fight tooth and nail with a printer to get it to work, when after about 75 rounds, I know I could just go get a different printer, or instead of trying to get it to work over my Wi-Fi, I could just plug it in. But I will not do that. I'll keep fighting and battling. Why is that so hard? Some of that's my obtuseness and whatnot, but that speaks to the nature of these things, even when I know that there's a much better solution out there.
Absolutely. Yep.
So Rich, just to orient folks, what we're looking at is this 3 stages of transitions, and it's sort of a visual description or a visual depiction of going from this stage, or this place where you are now,
right?
Through the transition zone, and then to a happy place at the end where you want to start over. So that's just this visual of, if you're not looking at this live, there's a starting color zone, mid zone, and then an end zone. So just imagine 3 striations if you're looking at this.
Yep. And if we look at this, if you're not visually seeing this, imagine, like Ben was saying, this box, right? And it starts off in the lower left, right, and moves up to the upper right. So we're on this upward trajectory, right? And we're in this green stage of ending, losing, letting go, and that's this section where we are starting this change process, right? And the emotions are going loco. I mean, they're just going nuts, right? Because you've got people who really, really want to do this, and you got people who are not so keen on it, or like seriously don't want to do this. Then we're in this. We move from this green to this gray neutral zone. I think that the gray color is actually pretty good, because it is this uncertainty. It's where people start to feel regret. Oh boy, can we go back? And that right there, there's anxiety that people feel even before we start to get, they're afraid they're going to get to that point. But then we're moving into, like you said, this happy place, this yellow place up in the top there, which is the new beginning, right? That's where we're actually seeing the good things, right? The light at the end of the tunnel, the, Yellow Brick Road. Roses, Sunshine and Roses, whatever.
Oh yeah. Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah, hey, maybe that's why it's yellow. I don't know, but still, that's it. But that gray zone there, boy, that really makes things muddy, right? I mean, we just don't see that vision, right? And that we talked about Cotter last time, right? Like, inspired a shared vision, right? We don't see it. How are we going to get people on board with it?
Well, and even getting people to get out of that starting point, in this model, they call it the ending stage. My head is tripping over that, because I think of change not starting at an ending. If that makes sense. So the terminology is a little bit different from what I'm used to, but regardless of that, this idea that just trying to get out of that, trying to create that sense of urgency that we talked about last time, that can be so hard and so critical, just to boost people into that framework of, okay, I'm ready to just start thinking about taking the plunge into something new. Not even taking that plunge, just start thinking about it, conceptualizing it, I think was one of those things that we were talking about last time. And then, once you get into that neutral zone, that's when things can feel very challenging for folks if they don't have a really super crisp vision of what they're moving towards, or if they feel like they haven't had a hand in crafting that vision. If you're just being dragged along, you're being forced through something that you especially don't agree with or you don't understand, that can be very hard for folks. In the stuff that I've worked on with different companies, that's where I've often seen a lot of the challenge. It's not necessarily crafting yellow brick road part. It's more getting people on that path through the neutral zone, through that gray area, answering people's questions. People come up with questions or concerns or suggestions that a small planning team could never think of. Mm-hmm. So how do you handle those? How do you factor those in and help bring those through to that sunshine and happy flowers place at the end?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why people who are, leading change or facilitating change, managing change, they need to have really good communication skills, because they need to be able to, if they don't have those answers to answer those questions, they need to go to the people that do and kind of negotiate those relationships, right? So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, because there is something I want you mentioned on why change is so hard, that I wanted to. It's in this document, but I got to look for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And I think it came from Carnegie. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just interesting to sort of think about. You look at all the literature and things that people have done as far as researching change, researching why people want to change. We can dig into that. Maybe that's a whole separate episode altogether.
Sure.
The one stat that's interesting that has sort of been circulating out there as received wisdom, if you will, is this idea, and it was put through in a McKinsey and Company post or article or something in their magazine, probably an actual magazine back then in 2015, long ago.
Oh, sure.
Some 70% of change programs fail to achieve their goals, largely due to employee resistance and lack of management support. It turns out that number is essentially made up, completely made up. It was
what?
Yeah. So really pretty crazy. These two guys back in 1993 wrote a book called Re-Engineering the Corporation. Michael Hammer, James Champy, they stated in quote, unscientific estimate that as many as 50% to 70% of the organizations that undertake a re-engineering effort do not achieve the dramatic results they intended. Okay, so that rough estimate, unscientific estimate from 1993 got picked up and just quoted ad nauseum until it became sort of the received wisdom. And it, interestingly, became less of a range and more of an endpoint. So 70% was sort of the anchor number that people came to. And it's just interesting that whole thing took on a life of its own. Even if it's a fraction of that, even if it's a quarter of that, like 35% would be half. So you got like 18%, 17% failure rate. That's still fairly high if you're spending millions of dollars on a massive change effort.
Yeah, right.
So there's still plenty of opportunity to do things better.
Sure.
But boy, I would be shocked if it were anywhere near as high as 50 to 70%, because I would have expected a lot more CEOs or CIOs or chief change officers, chief operations officers to have lost their jobs. I mean, if you fail at 50 to 70% of the things that you do in your day job, you're probably not on the right role.
Right. Consider how many organizations do change fairly regularly. Yeah. We have a lot of people unemployed, much more than the 3.7% of unemployment we have.
I know. Yeah. You're tracking that, huh?
Yeah. But, well, 42.1% of stats are made up as it is, and I just made up that number now. So
I love that. That. It's brilliant. I think we should put that out there. Just start posting that.
Just post that. See what happens.
How long it takes before that gets picked up in media and channels elsewhere, and then all of a sudden in a year, it's like Rich Cruz is quoted in the Times or the Guardian or on Wall Street somewhere that 42.1% of statistics are made up.
Right. I'm hoping beyond hope that the IO community out there that may see this don't come after me with torches and
there you go,
pitchforks.
You're the new change bogeyman.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Either that or all of our friends who are statisticians Yeah. Go after Rich.
Yes.
I mean, he said it.
Right. He said it. Right on. Well,
There you go. Did you find your thing that you were looking for in the article?
I did.
Okay.
I did. And so, one of the things that you mentioned before was that people, I'm paraphrasing you, and so correct me if I'm wrong on here, but you said something about people need to feel some ownership within that change process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
it helps a lot.
Helps a lot, right?
Do that, yeah.
And whether this is a true quote from Carnegie or not, but I've got this: people support a world that they help create, and that to me says a lot about some of the cultural aspects that we're trying to change right now, in society and the workplace, as a whole, is more shared decision making, more transparency. Arguably, it's a little more ethical, and at the same time, it gives people the motivation to to engage in the process. So, there is research out there about the more that employees become part of those decisions and help to shape what decisions are, particularly during these change processes. The more they're apt to be engaged, the more organizational commitment they have, and hence, you get the right people on the bus and you keep them, to kind of paraphrase Jim Collins.
I think the stat there was 42.1% positive change outcomes if the right people are involved.
There you go.
People have agency.
Are we just we're just hanging our hats at 42.1%, huh?
There you go. I love it. No, it's a good point though, because if people have some agency, if they felt like they've co-created, it can make that crossing that gray zone a lot easier. If they know, A, they can be very clear on what that sunshine place looks like at the end, and B, they have a really motivated sense of, I helped bring that vision about, and I want to help us get to that place. It can be much easier to move things along. Yeah. Much easier for them for people to buy in and bring their colleagues along too.
Absolutely,
because that can help a lot.
Yep.
Thinking through some other reasons why change is hard. Some of the stuff we've talked about, like you were saying before, just people are very comfortable with the status quo, even if it's hard, even if it's not perfect. Some of the things we've talked about a little bit last time in terms of creating that urgency, that can help or hinder getting people out of that, having that clear vision at the end in a super crisp way. We ended our last episode making it pretty clear that you need to have a very crisp, compelling vision of why we need to change, but that will also help get through this why it's hard. It will make it a lot less hard for people to change if it's super clear, like, we're going to go out of business if we don't do X, Y, and Z. People latch onto that pretty quick, and then they can decide, do I want to be part of this company going forward, or do I want to do something else with my career? That's totally fine, but at least it's clear there. And then I think some things that make it hard, again, comes into the human perspective, is just that the leadership aspect of it. Whoever's trying to create this vision and sell the vision maybe doesn't do a great job of it, doesn't understand the nuances, how that change can impact different people, or let people have that airtime to express concerns or make suggestions to make them feel like they've co-created or at least influenced where that goes. Has there been something that, in your experience, Rich, have you seen any one of these different kinds of reasons why change is hard have more of an impact or less of an impact?
Well, I think in my experience, and I think that there are some, and I think that there are a few research articles that I've come across recently, in fact, that support that when we focus more on like positive psychology, goal setting, and what can be, rather like from a positive perspective, rather than the negative. You're going to lose your job. We're going to go out of business. Those types of things. Maybe more motivating factors. And here's the thing, right? There are so many times when we're in a change process, or somebody starts to try to change something, right? And they say, well, if we don't do this, we're not going to compete. Or if we don't do this, we're going to fail. Or if we don't, blah, 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 the negative repercussions becomes kind of coercive, and so what happens is, the old resume gets taken out and dusted, right? I don't want to be part of this if we're in a sinking ship, and so I mean, like when I've brought CRM systems into an organization, right? And you have a sales staff that's like, I don't want to deal with this. I do this my way, and that's it.
Sure.
The times when you can get past that, right, is not when you say, well, if you don't do this, you're going to lose your job, or if you don't.
It's honestly too late by then. Yeah.
Yeah, and frankly, I've seen that. I've actually earlier on in my career, that was kind of a technique that we used as managers. That's completely ineffective. When you can demonstrate not only that there's benefit to this, and the rest of the organization's doing this, and you can get influencers throughout the organization to help move this forward, right? Internal friends or other sources of influence. You can facilitate getting more buy-in, on that change. It's whenever, it's always been my experience, whenever an executive or somebody else gets in that coercion mode, right? And they're not using transformational leadership. They're using transactional leadership to the, or even laissez-faire, we'll just let it, let it happen. Right. That's when things go awry, and that's when people lose trust. I think we talked about that even last time, a little bit of trust, right?
Trust is super critical. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good topic for another episode, maybe, is this idea of transactional versus transformational.
I do like those. There's a model. I can't remember the name of it now. It shows that on a continuum.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We'll do that.
Cool.
Make a note of it.
I like it. I like it. We'll do it. I'm just trying to be conscious of time. Quick time check. How are you feeling about where we are? I feel like we're at a pretty good spot to at least frame up this chunk of a podcast.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. I think this was, frankly, digestible, and we got something out of it. I hope the listeners got some value out of the discourse.
Well, I think for me, it's been helpful hearing your perspectives as always. Some of the stuff we talked about, this Bridges depiction of change, moving across this place where we would begin a change effort, which Bridges calls the ending.
Right.
And you're ending
this loss, right?
Loss,
it's like
ending,
we're
you're losing something, whether it's something you like or not. You're going through this gray zone of transition, uncertainty, unclear, maybe, and this vision of a sunny, happy place at the end.
Right.
We talked about why that can be hard to get people to change, to get across that for a variety of reasons. And I think if we want to think about, maybe like you were saying before, this idea of taking a positive spin or a positive framework rather than focus on the negative, we can think about it from a change can be easy. How do we help people see the good of the change? How do we help people co-create or participate in the vision of change? Make it clear why this change or this moving to a different place is not only necessary, but is a force for good, is a good thing in general.
Yep.
Those can also make that crossing of the gray zone a lot easier and a lot maybe shorter in terms of time and effort and emotional churn, things like that.
Right.
When I think of actions that, if I were listening to this and actually made it all the way through, I would think, okay, what do I want to take away from this? What do I want to do tomorrow when I go to back to my job?
Right.
One of the things that it sounds like, if I've heard you right, we want people to listen. So leaders need to listen. They need to listen to their people. That gives that individual contributors who might not be leaders a voice in this process. Let them be heard. Focus, like you were saying, on the positive spin and figure out how to frame anything as a positive, as a good, and not really focus on the negative aspects of it, if that's at all possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the things I was thinking is just going back to this idea of meeting the moment with that messaging of just clear, crisp, super, super concise. Why are we changing? What are we changing to? Why is this a good thing? And you can spin it to the positive. You can try to use wording or language that your people have told you will resonate with them, and in that sense. But it just comes back to crafting that vision.
Yep. I love that you refer to that vision as being crisp, because I think of in what they call dialogic organizational development, right? Jervis Bush uses these this imagery of having an image, right, of what we're going to see, right? And I think about that, and I'm like, if it's fuzzy, right, if it's out of focus, if it's not crisp, right, there's so much ambiguity. It could mean something to somebody else, and how do you get people on board with ambiguity? But
it's so hard.
Yeah,
it's so hard. Yeah, I was just talking with a client, and so much of some of the churn that they were going through was because it was not clear. Everyone was using the same word, strategy, but it wasn't clear what that meant to certain groups versus other groups. And so some people thought of strategy as this very, very high level, like we're going to conquer all of the world kind of thing. And other people were thinking of strategy just, how do I want to get this little bit of what I have to do done? Where is it that I want to go? And then how do I do it? So it was strategy on a much more smaller scale, micro scale. It's still strategy, but everyone was coming at it from such a different perspective that, it's again comes back to that listening to each other and hearing each other.
Right.
But making it super clear. Well, we're talking about strategy at the super high level. Like, do we want to bring our product to market in Europe or stay out of Europe? Right. That's very different than, do I want the color on the label to be blue or red?
Right.
Totally different.
Right. Totally different. Absolutely.
Totally different. But it does, the visual image makes me think of another thing that people could do is think about when they're trying to help people across this chasm of change, getting off of their place where they start, getting through that gray zone and into the promised land of happiness. You probably need to message it multiple times, but you also need to think, especially in this day and age where we have so many tools that can make it easier, put it in different formats. Some people are readers, some people are listeners, some people are visual consumers, some people like the long form, some people like the short form, some people like bullets, some people like just imagery. The more that you can put your change out there in different formats that resonate with different people, that they can go back to and consume in their own way, it will help you make that crossing a lot easier.
That's beautiful. That's a whole episode itself, man. Or multiple.
Oh man, right. So we've just teed up two more episodes.
For
transactional versus transformational leadership, and something around
internal communication
with different formats and media and lengths and styles and all that kind of stuff.
The Marcom person inside of me appreciates you saying that.
Oh, yay. I've earned my stripes.
Yeah.
42.1% of Marcom professionals use different kinds of media in all their outreach campaigns.
That's right. And 42.1% of successful leaders are going to listen to this podcast.
There you go. I like it. I like it.
All right, cool.
Hey, this was fun. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks, Rich, for co-hosting.
Oh, thank you, Ben. Awesome. Yeah, right. I hope this was worth the price of admission. So we'll see you on the next episode of the Harmonious Workplaces podcast. I'm Rich.
I'm Ben.
And we will see you real soon. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Harmonious Workplaces, a podcast about corporate culture, organizational change management, and workplace behavior. You can find Harmonious Workplaces on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Rich Cruz is a certified management consultant. Rich serves as an advisor and a consultant to business owners and C-suite executives, helping organizations improve performance, develop self-efficacy among workers, foster organizational commitment through employee engagement, create better communication strategies, and lead change. Rich has an MS in IO psychology from Purdue, an MBA from Capella, and his undergrad from UChicago with a SHRM-CP certification, as well as a certification in organizational development and change leadership.
And Ben is a management consultant based in Chicago, helping Fortune 500 clients in their healthcare sector design and execute change management initiatives. Ben likes to keep things simple and is known for translating complex, technical details into easily understandable concepts. Ben has an MBA from Kellogg School of Management and enjoys spending time with his family, distance running, and watching old black and white movies. Now, we love any feedback on whatever channel you find us on. Please rate, like, and share our podcast with your network. And remember to add Harmonious Workplaces to your list of favorites to get notified about each new episode. To get in touch with Rich, please visit www.workbalanceconsulting.com. And to connect with Ben, find him on LinkedIn or visit harborsidestrategy.com.